This is the Danger Close podcast, Beyond the Books with me, Jack Carr.
Welcome to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by SIG Sauer. My guest today is Brad Taylor. Brad is a former U.S. Army officer who spent time at the Army's 1st Special Forces Operational Detachment, Delta, better known as Delta Force. It's a highly classified unit, but if you want to know more about it, just use Wikipedia. He served multiple positions while at that command, including Squadron Commander, and he was early in to Afghanistan following September 11th, 2001. He's also the author of 15 thrillers, the 16th of which comes out this January 2022. We recorded this back in November of 2019, so we didn't get to talk, obviously, about the recent events in Afghanistan, but I'd love to have him back on to talk about that at some point in the future. Now, without further ado, Brad Taylor.
So I'm here with Brad Taylor at BoucherCon in Dallas.
My first BoucherCon.
First BoucherCon. Man, you've been at this a while.
I know.
And you haven't been to BoucherCon.
No, they always have them in September. And I have a recurring security contract every September.
Right.
Every September they say, hey, you're coming. Every September I say, I can't. September's blocked. And this year it was in October. And I said, oh, yeah, I can come this year.
Awesome.
So,
awesome. I'm glad you made it. I've only been at this a couple of years now. And this is my second one. So I think it's one of the...
I thought it was your third.
No, second one. So the first book came out in March of 2018. So I hit the 2018 BoucherCon. And then this is the 2019.
Yeah, okay.
And then we'll go from there. But I think it's going to be one of the ones that I hit every year just so I can see you.
Right.
I can see all other kind of
if they
friends.
roll it back to September, I won't be able to do it.
So you do that every year?
Every year, twice a year.
All right.
So,
well, I guess I should start by telling people who you are first. So
sure.
I'm here with Brad Taylor, who is the author of how many novels now?
Working on 15. 14 comes out this January. Hunter Killer comes out January 7th.
That's amazing. Great cover, by the way.
Yeah,
absolutely love it. And I always will start with a little bit of a background. But first, our relationship, we got linked up through a mutual friend who worked with you in the military, who now works at Zev Technologies, which is a Glock kind of aftermarket company.
Did you work with ZevTech?
I just know the guys that work there.
So how did you run into Mike Hefner?
So through that. So through the guys I know that started that company.
Yeah.
And then they met him randomly through those guys. Yeah. And then he said, you know what? You got to meet my friend Brad Taylor. He's he writes. Do you know who he is? I'm like, yeah, I've heard of him. And I'm like, would he talk to me? And he's like, yeah, I'll link you guys up. And then you were like the first person that I talked to in the industry because I didn't know anyone in publishing.
I know that story.
So I
absolutely know that story.
Yeah, but so Hef linked us up on email.
Yeah,
and then I wrote you something, and then you wrote me back. It was so nice the things that you said in there, and I couldn't be more appreciative.
Yeah, I started
of that.
to. I was just going to give you, sure, I'll talk to him. Here's a form letter I sent, and I just couldn't do it. So everything I wrote in there came from the heart. I
really took it I did take it to heart, and I sincerely appreciated it.
Yeah,
I've not forgotten it. So very cool of you to do that. And you're the first person to welcome me with open arms to this industry. And I thought it was going to be the exact opposite. And I don't know if you thought the same thing coming in.
I had no idea what to think, but you're right. So I really had no idea what to think. Whether it was going to be everybody considered you the competition and that kind of thing. And then I came to realize that, like everybody else does, that, it takes us a year to write a book. It takes people a week to read them. I'm not competing with you.
Exactly.
I'm not competing with anybody. They're going to buy both books if they're well-written.
Exactly.
The key is writing a well-written book. If they're both well-written, you're not cannibalizing my sales, and I'm not cannibalizing yours because they're going to buy them both.
Yeah, but I think people realize that, and that's why all these authors are just so welcoming, inviting, helpful. Yeah. And I thought the same thing. I thought it was going to be competition. They'll look at, who's this new guy coming in on our turf type thing. But the exact opposite was true. And you were the first one, and then everyone else has been so amazing. But so we came from military backgrounds. You Army, you Navy. But when did you decide that you wanted to do this? Was it a lifelong passion, and you knew you were going to do it after the military, or what was your journey?
It was. I wanted to go into Special Forces, and I've always wanted to write a book. I've always been a voracious reader. That's just, I read everything. In fact, half of your Twitter posts, I'm starting to think, is he cannibalizing my brain? Because Magnum PI used to be one of my favorite shows. Lethal Weapon is one of my favorite movies. So every time you post something, I'm like, what in the world? But actually, on my date with my wife, my very first date with her, I was just trying to impress her. And I said, I'm going into Special Forces. I'm going to write a book. And at that time, I had done nothing, and I was just trying to get her clothes off, which didn't work. But
she's smart for you.
I spent 20 years in special operations, And my last assignment, I was an instructor at the Citadel, and it was like getting off a bullet train and crawling. I had more time than I knew what to do with. And so I told my wife, hey, I think I'm going to write a book now. And I really thought it was going to sit on the bedside table. I really didn't think it was going to go anywhere. I mean, of course, in the back of your brain, you're like, maybe it will. But I just wanted to write a book. And so I just wrote this whole thing completely out. And having no idea about the publishing industry, I made so many mistakes that it was, I look back on it and think, I can't believe I actually got published. For instance, you deal in word count. I deal in word count.
Yep.
People ask you how many pages. I don't really know. I can
exactly.
tell you word count. I know exact word count because that's what the world is in of publishing. Well, back then I didn't know that. And so I actually took 10 hardcover books and did the first 10 pages and averaged how many words there were on those pages.
Wow.
And then increased the font of my document so I know how many pages I'd written.
Oh,
as
brutal.
like a hardback
That's
book,
funny.
Yeah. And so when I sent it to the first agent, that's how it was fonted like that.
That's hilarious.
And I'm sure she got it. I was like, what in the hell is this?
Oh, that is so great. How did you find her? How did you find an agent? How did you know you needed an agent? I didn't even know I needed one.
I had done just some Google stuff, said, you've got to have an agent before you go anywhere. And
I'm glad I didn't do that, Sal. I'm glad I did not know that because I might still not be published today.
Right. Yeah. Actually, mine worked out kind of the same way because I'm glad I didn't know all the rules of writing and all these things because I never would have written any of this stuff. Sometimes I get asked a question because mine's in first person and third person.
Both. Yeah.
And I guess there's some kind of rule you're not supposed to do that. How'd you know to break that rule? And I was like, well, I didn't know there was a rule.
I didn't know there was a rule.
If somebody told me there was a rule, I wouldn't have done it.
That's so great.
But I did what a lot of people do initially, because I didn't know the publishing industry, which was reach out to everybody I know. Does anybody know an agent of any type?
Yeah.
And my wife's boss knew the producer of Dexter.
Oh, wow.
The
Showtime
show. Uh-huh. And next door to his office was a literary agent.
Okay.
Well,
no way.
That's how I did it. Well, it turns out she doesn't do thrillers. She doesn't do any of that. I didn't realize any of this. So I sent it to her. And she, of course, said, this is crap. I don't want it. And I said, what do I need to do? How do I change this?
Right.
And so she gave me some tips. Tip number one being, fix that font. Don't send this to anybody like this again. And she was really nice. But later on, as I learned about how agents operate, she was never going to take it because it wasn't her genre.
Right.
She did like chick lit type stuff. And she was there's no way she was going to represent me. And I think all along, it was just kind of like, yeah, I'll do this just to be nice to this guy.
Right.
And then from then I started doing, I finished it, rewrote it 100 million times. And I did the old go to the bookstore, go to the back of every acknowledgement. They always thank their agent.
Right.
And go to their website. What do they want? And everybody wanted something different. Because in the age of the internet, you're not sending a letter in, which they know you've written. You're shotgunning emails. And so every agent wants something different to make sure you actually looked at his webpage and did what he said. Because if you just shotgun it out and he gets something that's not according to what he wants on the webpage, he knows you didn't even bother to
take
research.
The time, right? How many of those did you send out?
Oh, I don't even remember. A lot.
Wow.
And people talk about all these rejection letters they get. Well, I got what I think is even worse. I didn't bother to respond.
Silence.
It's just complete
Crickets.
Radio silence.
Yeah.
So I just assume that person doesn't care.
Wow.
And but some wanted the first 5 pages, some wanted a synopsis, some wanted the old-fashioned query letter. Everybody wanted something different to make sure that you were actually seeking them out.
Right.
And my agent right now, John Talbot, contacted me after all this had gone through. In fact, I'd pretty much said, okay, that was worth a shot. A little bit in the back of my brain, I thought I'd get published, and sure enough, it didn't. Time to move on with your career.
Yeah.
And he contacted me and said, I don't know how many agents are trying to get this, but I want to see the manuscript right now.
Awesome.
And I looked at my wife and was like, what's wrong with that guy? Something not right about that guy. And he took it on, and then the rest is history. He sold it to the publisher, and I got published.
No kidding. Did it always have the same title, One Rough Man?
It did. It never changed. Everything, none of that changed. Obviously, when it got to the first editor, a lot changed. He gave me a 2-page editorial letter, fix this, change that kind of stuff. And I did. But the One Rough Man stayed the same the whole time. And we'd discussed all that. When he was trying to sell the book to publishers, and now I was getting a little bit smarter about how this works, I had a lot of the publishers that, say, yeah, I'd like to buy this book, but I want to They would just completely eviscerate.
Oh, really?
I want to change. For instance, one was, I like the whole thing except for the counterterrorism angle. So if you could take out the counterterrorism,
that's going to be a little difficult.
Yeah, that's what are you saying? And this publisher said counterterrorism doesn't sell, and now I still see the same publisher, and I'm like,
nice. Well, how did you start the path into the military then? Did you do ROTC college?
I did.
Okay.
That's actually another funny story. So I was not a good student, and actually my twin brother went to the Citadel. My dad went to the Citadel. I was born in Okinawa because he was in the military. I had no interest in the military whatsoever. It just wasn't on my radar. I grew up on a farm in Texas, and I went to University of Texas. And my first year, I was a terrible student. And so I was flunking out of school, basically. And my dad said, if you flunk out of school, you're going in the Army. And, I was 18 years old. I was a grown adult, but you're still your father's son.
Sure.
And I was flunking out. And I was like, looks like I'm going in the Army. And that was the be-all-you-can-be days, And,
there you go.
I was actually thinking, losers go in the Army. Oh, no, I'm going in the Army.
Prison or Army?
Yeah. So I started researching the Army, reading everything I could read about it. And that's how I found about Special Forces. I read all the SEAL books in Vietnam, Special Forces book, MACSOG, all that stuff. And it actually didn't look too bad. I was like, they're paying you to jump out of airplanes. You run around the woods with a gun. Not sure why this is so bad because I grew up in the woods. And so it was by a complete miracle I didn't flunk out of school. My GPA was a 1.2, which was the bottom line for staying in.
Wow.
And so as I called my next freshman year, I decided to make the Army my career, and I joined ROTC and
no kidding.
Went into the Army. But I never would have if I hadn't almost flunked out of school.
No way. So you get commissioned, and then where do you go first after that?
I went to the 7th ID. 7th Infantry Division was a light division out in California. We had 2 light divisions at the time, not counting the 101st and 82nd. They started the 10th Mountain, the 7th ID, these big light divisions, where you just basically humped a ruck everywhere. And then from there, I went to SF, Okinawa, and then to the unit, spent the rest of my time in the unit.
Right. So you knew when you were at 7th ID that you were going there and you were going to do your selection, the test to get into selection and do all that stuff. Like you knew your path.
Yeah, I did. I knew that. I'd done the research on all that. It was you had to go. You had to do platoon level time somewhere. If they wanted infantry, I was definitely going infantry. Actually, I didn't even get infantry. I wasn't sure if I could make SF. I wasn't sure if I was physically capable of doing that kind of stuff. So I went to airborne school as a cadet before I signed a contract because that's the hardest school in the universe. And so I got through with it, and I was like, surely there's something harder than this.
Exactly.
Wasn't a whole lot to it.
Right. 20 push-ups.
Yeah, right. So, but my dad had gone through airborne school, kept talking about airborne school. So I went through it. I was like, Dad, I think you kind of embellished. That just wasn't quite as hard as you made it out to be.
Right.
And
I did the same one. We went to the airborne school just like everybody else until we got our own own in-house thing.
Yeah, we actually had some SEALs in there. They used to give us. We all had to do push-ups because they were just
being idiots.
Yeah, well, they did it on purpose. So we'll make everybody do push-ups. I know I can do more than everybody else.
Yeah.
But so then I said I'm going to go to Ranger school, and so I started competing for a Ranger slot. We hadn't sent anybody to Ranger school since 1976.
So from your ROTC?
From our ROTC. Nice. We had no Ranger qualified personnel on staff. Nobody knew anything about it. All I knew was all the stuff I'd read.
Right, beforehand.
And which was basically, you got to be physically fit. So it's all about no sleep, run around, no food, run around. Nobody ever said you actually had to think. So I went in completely unprepared.
Yeah.
I could write an op order because that's what you do in ROTC.
Okay.
But as far as patrolling goes, land navigation, all that stuff, I was horrible at it. And so I got recycled immediately.
Oh, wow.
Darby face, you're done. And they were going to kick me out because the guy actually, I failed every patrol. To me, I was doing common sense stuff. So, if I get lost, which is a good chance I'm going to get lost, I need to be able to find my patrol base. So if I put it on a road intersection, no matter what happens, I'll hit a road.
There you go.
And I can walk right down the road to the patrol
makes
base.
sense.
Makes sense to me. Well, they let me do it. And of course, gave me a big fat F. You're done.
Man.
And so I was in the no-go line, and the guy out processing me said, I see no reason to even give you a recycle.
Oh.
You had no chance of doing anything.
Oh, no.
And to this day, I wish I knew who this E6 was. He had flunked out of A&M, which was our big rival, University of Texas. And SF had not become a branch yet. This was in 87. And so he was SF qualified in the Ranger Regiment, now teaching at the Ranger Training Brigade. And he took a shine to me because we were in the gulag. All they do is PT you all day. And I was in damn good shape, but I could run all day and hump all night. I just couldn't patrol.
Yeah.
Which is kind of the thing.
Right.
That they wanted.
At your school, yeah.
So he took a shine to me and was hazing me every day at the gulag because I was UT, he was A&M. And then he liked me for whatever reason. He says, "What are you in here for?" And I said, basically, because I can't do anything. And he said,
I have nowhere else to go.
Right. That is exactly what I was saying. It was almost my Richard Gere moment.
Exactly.
Don't kick me out. I got nowhere else to go.
Exactly.
And he said, "Come to my hooch every night after we get hazed in the gulag. And I'm not going to teach you how to be a ranger, but I'm going to teach you how to pass this class." And so he started teaching me patrolling. And it's really common sense. Oh, don't walk down the road because they'll ambush you. Yeah, I can see that. And so he taught me everything he had while I was in the gulag. And when I went back in, I got honor grad goes the rest of the way through because it's kind of common sense. You know, you just don't do this, don't do that. You know, here's what you should do. And I could pick it up pretty quickly. And so I graduated Ranger School. And I said, yeah, I think I can do this Army thing. And so then I went in the infantry, and then went to SFAS and went out to Okinawa was my first assignment.
So first group out there.
Yeah.
And how many years did you do out there?
4 years out there. And actually, there's another funny story. I was born in Okinawa. Back then it was Camp Buckner. Now it's Buckner Hospital or something. And my daughter was born in Okinawa. And she was born in the same hospital as me.
Wow.
And so I asked her about it. And they said they've had the same 4 birthing rooms ever. They've never changed it. So there's a 1 in 4 chance she was born in the same room as me.
Wow. That's crazy.
I never figured it out, but I was like, that is crazy. I was like, holy moly.
That's amazing.
What's amazing to me is you haven't changed birthing rooms.
I know. You haven't updated this?
Right. Surely this is kind of stinky
I'm
now.
not shocked. That's not
right.
That doesn't surprise me at all. And so did you have to do language then as part of
JFK
I did Special Warfare School?
Pasatai.
Oh, nice. You still got it.
Nidnoy.
Have you worked in some novels?
I did. I actually did. It was not Ring of Fire. The Widow Strike. We did research. We went to Thailand, Singapore, Macau, and Hong Kong. And while I was in Thailand, because if you can speak any Thai, they love that. And I'm running around speaking Thai. And it sounded really good. I got on a tuk-tuk with my wife. Hey, we're going to take the tuk-tuk back to the hotel just for the experience. And it was a long tuk-tuk drive. And so I tell the guy in Thai where we're going. He takes off. It starts pouring rain. We're getting soaked. My wife's like, what are we doing? This is crazy. And he stops and says, tells me in Thai, okay, here you are. Let's pay the bill. And I'm like, this isn't our hotel. Where are we? But I'm too embarrassed to tell my wife that I clearly have said something like, take us to Monkey Circle or something. Till she finally calls our maitre d' and says, talk to this guy, tell him where to go. We were 2 miles off, kind of close, but 2 miles off.
A lot of times passed between SFA and
so I did work that into a book that my miscommunication, things like that.
Right.
Mike says something and I don't understand what he's saying.
Nice. I've worked with first group guys out of Okinawa a couple times, actually in the Philippines, 2009. I had more SF guys working with me than I did SEALs, and I learned so much from the warrant officer there. I mean, they have that warrant officer SF program is legit.
Yeah,
like those guys come out of there, they're sharp.
Actually, they're like right at the E6 level where if you've proven yourself on a team, you can do whatever the MOS is, and then they have a real cutthroat competition to get into the warrant officer school.
Yeah, no, it's serious. And we became a competition is because up until that point, all I'd done is kick doors, and I hadn't really thought about the insurgency side of things, the counterinsurgency side of things, kind of that broader mosaic. And so we got in this competition because in the Philippines, we're just advise and assist down there type thing, use some technical stuff and run some of their human stuff and kind of couple them together. But that was my time where I really studied insurgencies.
And that was when the JTF was running the SOCPAC was running that whole thing over there.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we did way before, after 9/11, that spun up. But before that, we had I did Balaktan a few times. Things like that. We was training the guys.
Yep.
That's all you're doing.
Yeah. So we were down there. It was actually a really interesting time. I was upset that I wasn't going back to Iraq or Afghanistan because that's where I all wanted to go.
Yeah.
But when I got there, I really took advantage of that time and learned a ton, particularly from that Army SF warrant officer. So and a lot of that study because it wasn't day in, day out kicking doors in.
Right.
A lot of that study found its way into my novels. So that was a very formative time for me as far as just academically studying and being able to then apply some of that to what we were doing in the Southern Philippines. So, but then where were you on 9/11? You were stateside at
I was actually on alert status at the unit. And so we were the guys. And it was, so we were doing some training with some guys. I can't really talk about it, but we had some guys, foreigners were there. We were doing training with them, and I went and run through the bay, and everybody was gathered around the TV, and they said, hey, a plane hit the World Trade Center. And I was like, I don't have time for that. Ran down again. I was doing more training, came back through the bay after lunch, and now there's a huge crowd. And they said, second plane's hit. Now the Pentagon's been hit. And I was like, that's not coincidence.
Yes.
And training was cut immediately after that. And, surprisingly, we all geared up. This is it. We're going to war.
Yeah, right.
And then they grounded all the planes. Well, I guess we can't magic ourselves there.
Yeah.
We'll just wait until the planes come back up.
But it wasn't too long after that you found yourself on, I think I've seen a picture of you on an aircraft carrier with a mutual friend. Not too long after.
No,
9/11.
It didn't take long, but it was, we did do a lot of spin-ups on various things because, everybody was just kind of going crazy.
Yeah, no one knew.
SOCCENT was going nuts. Everybody was just losing their mind over where are we going? What are we doing?
Yep.
And so it took a little while for everybody to coalesce around that. And then eventually they did. We went into Afghanistan.
Yeah, no, it was amazing. That mutual friend found his way as inspired one of the characters in my second novel.
Kidding.
Yeah, so he's in there with a different nickname. Oh, yeah.
Oh, no kidding.
So he's got a different nickname, but it's similar. And a very similar background. I'll send you those pages. I'll take a picture of them and send those to you. But and then that was a 3-month deal, and then you came back and just started to get ready to go back again and kind of got on that rotation.
That was it was 3 or 4 months. I can't remember how long it was. And we came out and we started doing the rotational stuff. Then I went to CGSC, and right after CGSC, Iraq was bubbling up. That's the next big thing. And then we crossed into Burma, Iraq, and then that became just a constant rotation.
Got it.
4 months on, 4 months off, 4 months on, 4 months off. You're just in there from the beginning all the way till, I guess, 2008.
Yeah.
Just over and over and over again.
And that's when you retired in.
That's when I went to the Citadel. I
2008.
I finished Squadron Command, and there was a lot of options out there. None of them were very palatable because I've been deployed forever.
Right.
And obviously, the next higher command of the unit wanted me to come there, and then SOCOM had billets and all this. And I was like, I'm taking a break. I'm going down the Citadel, which everybody was floored about. They're like, what are you doing? You're tubing your career, which I probably was. I don't know. But I needed a break. And so I went down to the Citadel to teach. And once I got down there, my wife was like, if you want to stay in the Army, you should have brought me here. Because you don't realize the stress you're under. Everybody's doing it.
Right.
Your whole
it's your normal.
It is your normal.
Mm-hmm.
And you have no idea that people are actually not doing this.
Right.
That somebody is not getting shot at. There's, everybody else is.
Right.
And when we got down to Charleston, within a year, it was just complete eye-opening. To the point where even uniform stuff. So because I never wore a uniform. And even if I had, Fort Bragg is just full of uniforms, so nobody really cares about that. And I put on my uniform for the first time forever. My wife actually was at Fort Bragg closing on our house when I was there, and I realized I don't have any badges or tabs or anything. I didn't have any uniform
That's
stuff.
hilarious.
And so she bought it all and shipped it to me, and I put it all on, and I'm taking my daughter to school, which is I never got to do at Fort Bragg, so it's one of the perks. And she says, Daddy, why are you wearing a costume?
That's funny.
She had never seen me in uniform. I'm like,
Wow.
Are you kidding? This is an Army uniform. I explained to her, I'm in the Army.
Yeah, well, at the place you were at, it's not surprising that she hadn't seen you in uniform.
But I had another person. I was filling up my car, and so it's still kind of fresh, just being in this kind of civilian world thing.
Yeah.
And this guy kept staring at me as I'm filling my car up, and I'm in uniform. But I'm in Charleston. You don't see a lot of uniforms in Charleston, and so I'm filling up. And he keeps staring at me, and I'm thinking that guy has got some kind of war protester or something. And so I go in to pay. He comes in, and he's still staring at me. And so I turn around and say, "You got a problem with me?" I cursed at him. What the F do you think is your problem? And he says, "No, my daughter's never seen a Green Beret. She wanted to shake your hand." And I was like, "Oh, no."
I'm a little on edge. I've had a rough last 8 years.
I'm sure he walked out going, I'm never going to shake another Green Beret hand in my life.
Oh, man.
I couldn't believe it. So after that, I was like, okay, if someone's looking at you, it's because they haven't seen the uniform and they probably want to thank you for your service or something like that.
No, that's
kind
amazing.
Of embarrassing though.
No, that's good stuff. And so you had a solid run there, and you did about as much as you could do as an officer tactically. Going forward, if you'd stayed in, you would have gone on to, you're deployed downrange, but you're really not tactically on the ground with the boys leading, doing the thing. So you got out at a great time, had a great run, went to the Citadel, got to take a breath, which is great, and then make the decision to follow this next passion into publishing.
So I came out on the bird colonel list, and the book sold. And I was like, holy moly, now what? So you either take the promotion or you try to see if you can make writing a career. And I'll be honest with you, if I had known how hard it was to get published and how hard it was to be a writer, I would have stayed in the Army.
Yeah.
Because they just don't know that.
Good thing you don't know. Yeah.
Right. And so, maybe not, because, you and I, we're both, you could say no all day long, and I'm going to say, yes, I can. So,
Exactly. What are the odds? Oh, yeah, that sounds good. I'll be in that 1% or half a percent.
Yeah.
Why wouldn't I be?
Yeah, why would I?
Yeah.
It's never. So I had a long conversation with my wife and everything. My daughter was entering high school, and that's when she made the comment, if you want to stay in the Army, you shouldn't have brought me here. I'm not going back to that pressure cooker. My first assignment was unaccompanied to Pakistan for 2 years.
Wow.
And so I said, no, I'm going to turn down promotion, and I'm going to try to be a writer.
Nice.
And it worked. It's a miracle. Now, I come to all these conferences, which I meet all the people that are
Yeah.
writers, and because it's solitary work when you're writing by yourself. You're just kind of like, you're just doing it, writing it. Yeah, I had no idea how hard it was to do it. Now,
Well, you didn't make it easy. You started doing 2 a year.
oh, I know.
How on earth? Well, why did you do 2 a year?
So-
and then how did you do 2 a year?
See,
Because 1 a year is tough enough.
To this day, I don't know how I did it, but what was happening was I still had to, my daughter still needed shoes, so writing wasn't paying the bills. So I did a lot of security contracting. I turned into a whore like everybody else does, and threw my shingle out there and got hired by whoever would hire me, and go run around doing contracting stuff. So I'd look at my schedule and say the book was due in December. I would have contracts from July until January, and so I said, well, I got to get in July because I'm not going to be able to write when I'm doing all this other stuff. And so I turn it in July. And the books are all about current events, so something could go bad on current events, and the book could be worthless. And so I would just sit there and beat my publisher up. Why aren't you putting it out? Why aren't you putting it out? Why are you waiting for? I gave it to you. Let's put it out.
Let's do this.
And they said, well, you're not our only author, jackass boy. You're slated for December. You'll go out in December. We got a little program here we follow. Well, that happened for 3 books.
Okay.
And I was getting them in 6 months of screaming, and my publisher said, okay, smarty pants, we'll do
How about
2 a
2,
year.
smart guy?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
You think you will do 2 a year? And so I was like, I had made that schedule up to that point because I had the opportunity not to make it. Now I had to make it.
Right.
And I was like, holy moly, what have you done? So the first 2, and it actually wasn't even 2, I was doing 2 novellas and 2 books a year, which included 2 book tours, 2 book research trips, 2 of everything. And it's not even 2 books because you're writing a book while you're editing a second book, while you're promoting a third book.
Right.
And to the point where I would get asked questions on the book tour that I couldn't. I'm like, that was 2 books ago.
Yeah.
It's just now coming out. But
Right.
I'm on a whole different book. I'm not even sure what character.
What are you talking about? Yeah.
He did what?
Yeah. It's incredible. It sounds great, though.
So I did that for I think 4 years.
Jeez.
And the last time it was falling apart. It really was. And
Well, you're doing 2 books a year, 2 novellas a year, and contracting. Oh, and a family.
Oh, yeah. Well, no, the contracting dropped. I had to
Okay.
make a decision. And so, in fact, it dropped to these 2 I do. That's all I
Well,
do now.
that's still doing
Yeah.
them.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Except for that, the contract I do, I actually do get time to write there.
Yeah,
So
nice.
It's kind of like a break, and you're locked into a barracks all by yourself.
Oh, okay.
So that's all you can do.
Got it.
But it was falling apart. It was, I think it was Ring of Fire. I remember coming home and telling my wife, I'm not going to make it. This deadline, I'm not going to meet it. I had burned the candle at both ends for so long that I was just like, I'm not going to meet this deadline.
Yeah.
And I was worried, what am I going to do? And actually, I was thinking long term because I'd signed this contract. I had another, 4 books I owed them at 2 at this pace. And I'm like, I'm not going to make this one. I'm certainly not going to make the other ones. I'm just burned out.
Yeah.
And my publisher actually called me and says, hey, we're thinking about going back to 1 a year for various sales reasons and all this other kind of stuff. You're cannibalizing yourself and all that kind of things. And I was like, roger that.
Okay. That sounds like a great idea.
That's a great idea.
Yeah.
Actually, I had to go, that's bullshit.
Exactly. I can do it,
said, that's
but
a great
okay.
idea. That's absolutely fine.
Yeah.
So that book I got an extra 6 months on,
Nice.
got it in, and then started doing 1 a year again.
Got it.
And I honestly have no idea how I managed.
Yeah, I can. Yeah, 1 a year is tough enough with all the promotion and branding.
Yeah,
and learning.
I don't know how I did it. I look back, and the books are really good books. I still read them, and I think, and that's the other worries. You got a whole year to do a book, and you're always worried: is this thing gonna just be a piece of crap, or can I make it? Can I still write a good story? At a 6 months pace, you don't even have time for that.
That's wild.
It's like get
Can't
the
imagine.
book out.
Yeah.
I don't care what happens. The book's got to go out, and each one of them are really good. And of course, they're my books, but
I've heard
I
that
thought they were
too.
really good.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. Well, where did the novella ideal come from? Like, you're like, well, I'm doing 2 books a year. You know what I should do? I should write 2 novellas also.
That was actually, originally it was just a marketing thing that my publisher wanted to do. And so you do them for a pittance, and then you give them an excerpt of the book. And the theory being that if they pay it, 50 cents for this short story, it's only on ebooks. If they pay 50 cents or $1, whatever it was, for that, they'll like that. They'll read the excerpt and they'll buy the book.
Got it.
Which I fought back over and over on and said, I don't want to do that because you're predicating them buying the book on this short story.
So it has to be good.
It has to be good.
Right.
They could read the short story for a nickel and say that guy can't write, and they might have bought the book sight unseen, and now they're not going to buy the book because of that short story.
Okay, you thought that through.
And so I put a lot of effort into short stories, and so the first 3 I did, they started getting longer and longer and longer, and then I wrote The Target, which was basically 32,000 words. I mean, it's a quarter of a novel, and they were like, "Hey, you need to tone these down." I was like, "Hey, sorry about that, but." You know my theory on this. They have got to read these things, and they've got to be, in order to buy the book, you've got to write a good short story.
Well, it must work because you're still doing it. You just had one come out this last year.
I did. And actually, that one was, the last 2 that came out were kind of easier to write because I had an idea in my head, like in Operator Down. Yeah, it was Operator Down. 2 of the characters mentioned they've gotten married, but you don't really talk about the wedding. And they do talk about how the wedding was a shit show. And you don't really know why. And so it sat in my head, what was the shit show about that wedding? And so that was a short story.
Got it.
I just came up with it and led right into it. And I'd done all this research in Israel and Tel Aviv and Haifa and all these other places ended up in the book, but the old city hadn't, even though I'd done the research, it didn't end up in Operator Down. So then I made the wedding in the old city, and so it's kind of all was done so I could do it.
Oh, no, that's great.
And so it worked out. That's a pretty good short story, too. And so the last one, the one that just came out on Tuesday, Exit Fee, came about because Amina, in Daughter of War, I created this refugee child who was going to exit stage left a quarter of the way in. Her whole purpose in life was to have her and Pike collide so that Pike could then get on the threat vector and kill everybody.
Got it.
But I liked her too much. It's like, man, I really like her. So I kept her in the story, which was really hard to do because she has to contribute to the plot.
Move it forward.
She can't just be holding onto Pike's lapels the whole time.
Right.
Who cares about that? So I figured that out. And then all the way through it, at the very end, I don't want to give it away, but I did something that now she's part of the Pike Logan universe. And I was like, now what do I do?
That's that problem solving. I like that.
So now I've got this character that you can't start because you're writing a series. You can't start the next book and just say, forget about everything that happened in the past.
Right.
This is all new.
Right.
So I had to figure that out. And while I was trying to figure it out, that's where the short story came from. So that was kind of wrote itself too. I was like, their relationships, how this is going to work, who's doing what, all that came out from, it was in my head thinking about the book Hunter Killer that's coming out. How am I going to address all that? And so you had all the stray errata in my head. I was just like, I'll throw all that into a short story.
Nice. And then the first 2 chapters or the first something is from Hunter Killer is at the end of that.
Yes.
Novella.
Yes.
Leads into Hunter Killer.
Yeah, I think it's 4 chapters. I think it is.
Awesome.
And that's the one thing is they always want to do excerpts that. So sometimes I write and you don't meet Pike until chapter 4. Like, hey, can you move him earlier? No, it's my book. That's how this thing's going to go.
Right.
There's a flow to this.
I'm the author here.
Yeah, because when they know they're looking at it marketing wise. If I do an excerpt first four chapters and none of it has Pike in it,
right,
that's not going to sell the book.
Got it.
We said, well, do 5 then.
Got it. And so what have you, over these years that you've been doing this now, what is that process? Has it evolved? And what have you found that is the most, what's your most efficient process that you had? You started on a certain date, finish on a certain date? Are you disciplined in that approach? Like, or is it still, mine's total chaos. So
mine
what is yours?
Absolutely. It's stream of consciousness. I tried because you read all the advice columns, write 1,000 words a day or 1,500 words a day, whatever it is. And invariably I found out I ended up dumping it because it was crap because I was forcing myself to write stuff. And so mine is I developed what I call a framework. It's not an outline per se. I know the threat. I know the characters, or at least the sect of the characters, whether that be Russians or Sunni terrorists or something. I know they're coming from somewhere. And I used to say I know how it's going to end. But that's about 80% of the time now. There's been about 20% of the time where I completely changed the ending just because by the time I got there, it made more sense.
Yeah.
And then from there, I'll start doing all the research. Like the book I'm working on now is about China and Taiwan and the threats to Australia and all that. So I've read probably 7 books on Taiwan Strait, China's hegemony. There's all kinds of these books on.
Are you taking notes as you go through? Like, hey, this part's going to work its way into the plot, that sort of thing.
Actually, I don't, because I'm not sure yet, but I do flag everything. So those little yellow tags that come out.
Yeah.
So I'll highlight something, and it's not that if this is going to be at point X, I might be able to use that.
Got it.
Tag. And then if I get there, I'll say, I remember there was something and I'll flip through the book and go, oh, there it is. Or there's certain things, like you read a lot of technical stuff on China. They have the actual names for the intelligence agencies. We call it the MSS, Ministry of State Security, but they actually have, a Chinese name.
Got it.
And you'll never find that again, so I'm flagging that.
Right. Oh.
I'm going to put that in there because somebody that knows Chinese is going to go, wow, look at him. He's got it.
Did you do that in Word? Do you write in Word or do you write in Scrivener? What do you use?
I haven't tried Scrivener.
Gotta try it. It's so good.
Onto that.
Yeah.
And
because you can drag that research in, so you're not like in your head, like, what book was that of these ones? Which tag is that?
So we went back and forth over that a little bit.
Yeah.
And so I have not downloaded it because I haven't actually started putting.
Got it.
Word, but I am going to definitely download it.
Yeah. No, it's definitely it's helped because you can drag that research in.
Yeah.
You can have your notes in there. You can break it up by like post notes, so you can see. Oh, I can drag and drop chapters instead of cutting and pasting.
Well, there was 2 things that I really liked, and this alone would make it worth for me. I type in at the bottom of the manuscript all of the names.
I need to do that
because of the characters, because they're always, whether it's Sunni Arab, Russian, Chinese. It's hard to remember those things.
Yes,
and actual places too that are hard to remember. Ixtepa Island off of Brazil, which is in Hunter Killer. It's a weird spelling, XP something, and I couldn't remember how to spell it, so I would put that down there. Well, with Scrivener, you can just roll that stuff in.
Exactly.
And so
it's so nice.
I told Elaine after we'd gone back and forth, I told my wife, I said, that alone is worth it. The rest of the stuff is maybe great, but that alone, if I don't have to keep scrolling to the bottom of my manuscript to find those, cut and paste and put it back up.
Yeah, and watch the videos. Like each one is about like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. I think is the longest one, but the videos on the Scrivener website that show you just go spend a couple hours and go through those is totally worth it.
I've seen a couple of them, but I will go through.
Yeah, I'm completely.
Yeah, you're
sold
obviously a big fan. Actually, I was thinking, what is he sponsor for him?
No, not at all. I just sharing the info.
Every time you see you got a Scrivener hat
committed.
on.
I know, seriously. Yeah, sponsored by Scrivener. Yeah, no, exactly. And another thing I noticed. So I looked at you as the model coming out because you've been in the military. You've made that transition. Obviously, you were at the top of the special operations pyramid. Did amazing things. But you made that transition into publishing without doing a nonfiction. And you and I wanted to write fiction as well. So I saw you and saw how you did it, but I also noticed how humble you were and how that people have to drag out of you what you did in the past. And obviously it informs your writing and all that stuff. And but people have to drag. You're very humble about the things that you've done.
It's you spent 20 years at a party not telling anybody what you do.
Right.
Till now the publisher's like, we're going to put it on a banner. You're going to run around and beat your chest and say all this stuff. And it's just, I just don't like it.
Yeah.
To people like you, it's easy to do, but to somebody else, and I get asked questions all the time. It's even on interviews with people, they'll just flat out ask you this completely classified question.
Right.
Like, I can't talk about that. I told you before I came on, I can't talk about it. Now you're asking me on air. You think I'm going to talk about it? No, I'm not talking about it.
Right.
It's a whole interview. They ended 20 minutes early.
Yeah. I'm not asking that guy back.
Yeah,
Let's bring a SEAL in here. He'll tell everything. No, but I noticed that and saw how well you did that, how well you made that transition. That was really a model for
Yeah, well, at the end of the day, my respect of my mates is more important to me than selling a book. And I've always held that at the heart. It's like, no, I'm not going to do that, because if I look down, if it seems kind of skeevy to me, then I'm not doing it.
Right.
And I just never have.
Right. And they, and for the most part, so I was worried, like, hey, I've spent a lot of time with these guys. I don't know if they know, a lot of them know the difference between fiction and nonfiction. It's going to go in just the book category.
Oh, it definitely did with me too.
Yeah.
I mean, there's always somebody out there that did, but I have a good enough reputation and I still work with enough people that they, and they all read them before I publish them. They, take this out, take that out.
Awesome.
Not so much anymore when I first started writing, but now so far removed from it, it's like.
Right. It was so fresh back then.
Yeah.
And, now I think, so I'm, what did I got out in 2016. So this is the 3rd book I'm finishing up, but it's so far removed. that I'm studying things and just getting stuff from news and
Exactly.
books and everything else.
Yeah.
And it's just, it's really the feelings and emotions behind those things that happened in the
Exactly. Which
past
you know
that
is
I'm
never gonna
incorporating. And
that will never change.
yeah,
In fact, Hunter Killer was it was kind of going retrograde back to a lot of stuff happens in the book that I know it's, the emotions aren't going to change it. And the TTPs, all the electronic stuff is what's impossible to keep up.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
It's just because, there's
it's
surveillance.
almost changing real time.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
And it's all COD stuff now. It used to be, the CIA had their version of Q and they had the neatest toys in the attic. Now everybody's buying it from Radio Shack, because they have the neatest toys because they can do it so much quicker.
Right.
And most of the criminals are developing TTPs that we now use because they figured out how to make it to steal money. Well, I can figure out how to catch a guy.
Yep, that game of constant adaptation. Yeah. So, and it's fun to go and do that research and do it because I never did any of that in the military, but to study that now and then figure out, oh, wow, how is this affecting operations today, especially if you're doing something more on the darker side of things. Like, wow, they have to contend with all this facial recognition and, what all these other things. And so I'm going to weave those into to plots and storylines. And
actually, that's a hard thing, too, is that you got to figure out. So when Pike's team does a hit somewhere, there's cameras all over the damn place now.
Right.
Mossad did the hit down in Dubai at Al Bustan Rotani Hotel, which I used in a book.
Nice.
So I went down and did a battle site survey.
Oh, that's awesome.
Where he got hit. And there's cameras everywhere. And they broke that thing open within 24 hours. It was Israelis who did this. Here's the passports they had. Here's what they look like. Now, the Israelis had made it out of the country, but they found it all.
Yeah.
And so every time I'm doing this hit somewhere, I'm thinking, okay, I got to figure out how they did this without any cameras, or could they take the cameras out? So sometimes they take them out, sometimes they do this.
Right.
At least they're thinking about that.
Right.
And that's another funny story. It's the reason you do on the ground research. So the big diabolical trap was they were going to have this elevator. They were going to blow the cables in the elevator. It was going to drop 120 floors and smash into the ground and kill this ambassador. So I did the Al Bustan Rotani. They picked that. The bad guys picked that hotel because that's where these guys had killed their man. They were going to do the same hotel, blah, 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 blah. So I get on the ground, and the hotel's 4 stories tall. That's it.
Oh, jeez.
But you can't see it anywhere in the pictures.
That's amazing.
It doesn't show anything.
Yeah.
And not only that, it's got elevators the strangest thing ever. I've never seen in any other hotel. Elevators at all 4 corners. So there's not an elevator bank.
Interesting.
It's 4 corners. And I was like, how on earth are they going to...
Of the one place.
Yeah.
Come on.
How am I going to be able to design a trap where they know which elevator they're going to use? They can't rig them all. So I went to the Burj Khalifa, the tallest building in the world, and that's the one I ended up using, which is a much sexier thing.
Nice.
So blew that elevator up, and it fell bazillions of stories into the ground.
Oh, that's perfect. Perfect. Awesome. And when does Hunter Killer come out?
January 7th.
January 7th. Oh, early. 7th. Nice.
Yeah.
I thought that's great. So that comes out the 7th, and then it's usually always come out in January, right? Now that you're doing one a
it's
year.
going February, January.
Okay.
Well, of course, when I was doing 2 a year, it was June, July, February, January, and that that's chicken bone magic from the publisher. I don't know
the
dates. I don't.
No, that's amazing.
Say.
Okay, so that's coming out then. So January 7th. And where can people find you online?
You can find me at bradtaylorBooks.com. They can read excerpts of any of the books that are all posted there. Hunter Killer's not up yet, but it will be soon. And I'm on Facebook, Brad Taylor Books, Facebook, and Twitter, same thing, Brad Taylor Books.
Awesome. And you have blogs. People can sign up for the newsletter, and you do blogs every now and again about current events, your take on things.
I did a lot more in the past, and I should get back on it. Like we just smoked al-Baghdadi. There's a bunch of stuff that happened on the news. Usually the only reason I blog is I see a bunch of talking heads say something and it aggravates me. And so I write a blog about
And usually you start the blog with those, I noticed. You're like, all right, okay, people.
Everybody take a deep breath because here's what's going on. And al-Baghdadi there was a lot of people saying stuff that I'm like, that's not accurate.
Yeah.
I didn't have the time. I was in Australia, just came back, was coming here, and I didn't have time to write a blog. I should have.
You've been busy. But I know you got to go, so we're at that time. You're a busy man out here at VoucherCon.
Wow!
And I want to thank you for doing this, and I want to thank you for your time at the tip of the spear as well. And thank you for being such a good example to those of us who are leaving the military, turning that page and moving on and transitioning out. It means a lot to me, and I know I'm not the only one. So thank you so much. Really appreciate it. And
thank you.
Let's go get some drinks at the bar.
Yeah, that was fun.
Thank you for tuning in to the Danger Close podcast, an Ironclad original presented by SIG Sauer. Find out more about Brad Taylor and his work at bradtaylorbooks.com. You can also follow him on the social channels at Brad Taylor Books. His most recent thriller comes out this January called End of Days. If you liked our conversation, be sure to leave a 5-star rating and review wherever you get your podcasts. You can find me at officialjackcarr.com. You can find the merch at jackcarrusa.com. Until the next time, take care, stay safe, keep fighting.